Podcasting and business. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. This is Now Tell Us, and I'm your host, Anthony Moirore. At Now Tell Us, we have guests come and tell us stories, they come and inspire us, they come and educate us on a subject, and always we are having a great time. And that means that this being one of those episodes that we have a great time, we have a great guest who is going to come and join us. Her name is Molly Ruland, and she will be here shortly to talk about podcasting and business. If you are as eager as I am to go and hear what she has to say, then come and join me. And remember to share this video with all your friends so that they can also join in this conversation. If you have a question, send it to us. If you have a comment, we'll appreciate your feedback. So, without taking one more minute, let's go and meet our guest today. Here we go. Hi, Molly.
Hey there, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. Can we know where you are?
Yes, I the business is based out of Washington D.C., but I live in Costa Rica.
Oh, okay. How's that? You're doing a business in one area and you're in another area.
Well, it's a global workforce now, so half of my team is in the states, and the other half is around the world. So, we had a brick and mortar physical location and studio in downtown Washington D.C.
Hmm.
But when the pandemic hit, we closed those doors and went fully remote, and so it opened up our client base to a global audience. And since my team is also global, I figured it was a great
Oh,
opportunity for me to be as well. So
our internet is back. She's here. Okay, welcome back. Sorry for that. Uh, you're still hanging, unfortunately. Can you hear me?
yeah, it's fine on my end. Like you froze up, but I didn't.
Okay, you're back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Uh, it's interesting to have technology let us down just when we are sharing some interesting things, some good things.
Yeah, that's how it always seems to go, huh?
Yes, and we hope that, and this is a promise to the person who's here, the future is bright. Just way ahead of this episode is going to be a great episode. And so, welcome to Now Tell Us, as Molly is going to tell us about podcasting and business.
Excellent.
Yeah. Oh, so you were telling about going remote, fully remote, having an office, closing it due to the pandemic, and then going fully remote. Now, it's interesting that maybe you didn't know that you are more global today because I'm calling from a very distant land. Guess where I am?
I don't know. Where are you?
Okay. I'm in Athens, Greece.
Oh wow, look at that. Well, this is a truly international podcast then, yeah.
This is yeah, it's international. And we are going to dive deep into what we are dealing with today, hoping that just as we say, that the internet stays stable for last. Just hey, you there. The internet, please give us half an hour at least to get over this topic. So here we go. You into Podcasting. You've been into podcasting. How did you get into it, if I may ask?
Well, I've owned a multimedia company for the last 23 years. So we've been, producing a lot of content, audio, video, producing events, recording bands, just a lot of, heavy digital and analog content. So it really wasn't anything new. In 2016, I had a 3-story building and built a retail location, podcast studio, recording studio, and a live music stage, and that was the first podcast studio I built in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when we really got into podcasting. But we do things a little different. We use podcasting as a business development tool, and that's what we do for our clients. So it's less of visibility or thought leadership and more of client acquisition. So it's a very specific way to go about a branded podcast.
Oh, that's good. So you get to connect with podcasters, or even people who want to get into podcasting, and then you help them with their podcast, growing their business. And how does it all go? If we may get very fine details of someone who has no idea of how this goes.
Well, we primarily work with businesses or companies that are like 6-figure companies that have a budget for a branded podcast, because if you're going to produce content that's representing your business, you really want it to be professionally produced,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a representation of your business. And if you're doing it as a client acquisition tool, then the
Mm-hmm.
goal is that whoever you're interviewing, number one, does business with you, and number two, is proud to share those assets online. And so you want to create, high quality video, high quality audio, graphics as well, so that you can create that relationship and kind of let other people know that that relationship is being created as well, right? That's the entire idea behind the social media graphics, really. The representation for the company happens in the SEO that's created organically with all the metadata and the blog posts and everything else that goes with a podcast, the transcription. And the rest of it is creating that relationship. So we start with a strategy session. What is really the goal of your podcast? What does success look like? Let's identify 12 people that could actually move the needle in your business this year, and let's interview them and focus less on who has the biggest LinkedIn following or how many social media posts can you put out, and more targeted. You could do 12 very targeted episodes with the people you want to do business with once a year and have a greater ROI than doing a weekly podcast or not having any real clear definition in what the goal is.
Hmm. Now, mainly what I get to hear from you is that you're looking at not specifically those people who are focusing on the podcast as their main business, but someone who have another business that wants to use the podcast to grow and acquire clients in this aspect.
For sure, because if you think about, like, I have a client that does geospatial satellite mapping. Right? It's
Mm-hmm.
very specific, right? It's very, very specific. And they have a podcast where they talk about that. And they talk about GitHub and all these like very technical things. It doesn't have like a huge following, but it has helped them land multi-million dollar contracts, because if you have this huge contract to award for geospatial satellite mapping, you're gonna number one, lean on relationships. That's just human nature. So if you know somebody and you know they're good, you're gonna want to give them that business, and you're gonna want to hire the people who are very passionate and intelligent about it. So these people who are awarding contracts get to listen to that company and listen to that podcast and hear how intelligent they are and hear how passionate they are and hear how experienced they are. And of course, that's going to inform them when they decide to hire somebody. They want to hire the people who are really excited, passionate, and experienced in that skill. And so having a podcast is an excellent tool for client acquisitions, especially when you focus on it that way and focus less on they don't need to be in front of a million people. A million people don't need geospatial satellite mapping services, but a certain group of people does. And so it's more important to focus on how to get in front of them, especially if you can get them across the table from you.
Mm-hmm.
as the guest versus focusing on them as a potential audience member, then you really start to see an ROI.
Wow, that's a good perspective. So bring them here, talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about, but this is building a relationship that is going to lead into some good business.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, in your experience, what has been one of the biggest challenges that you have faced, or one of your clients or some of your clients encounter on a day-to-day basis?
I think at the core of everything, it's leadership, right? I don't think leadership is talked about enough. If you're a business owner, you're the leader. Even with your clients, they're looking for you to lead them, right? They've hired you because your expertise. And so it's a constant struggle of being a better version and recognizing the mistakes that, I've made and where I could have set my employees up better for success, or how I could have been a better um, vendor to some of my clients, right? So I think it's a daily process of self reflection and really valuing your clients and looking at the work you're doing and making sure that you're keeping up to the standard that you promised them and that you really want for them.
Hmm. And now, talking about leadership, now you can't be a leader if you don't have someone that you're leading. And in this case, I'm talking about having a team, and you have a business. You want to uh, expand. You want to use podcasting, and there are a lot of strings attached to anything that you want to do. So, how do you bring on a team? What's the best way? And how do you actually put these things working?
Well, I think a mistake that a lot of companies make will say, well, we have a graphic designer and we have an audio company or we have an editor, so we can do that. But the thing about a podcast is that it's so many different departments. It's audio, it's video, it's copywriting, it's graphic design, it's website, it's social media, you know,
Mhm,
and so for a company, that's a really difficult thing to manage. So, like for example, the Atlantic Council, they're a big think tank. We produce a lot of their podcasts in house, even though they have a full AV team. But
mhm,
that content would literally have to go to so many different departments. So for them, it's a very clear example of why it makes more sense to hire a company like mine, because I have 7 employees. I have a full time video, full time audio. I have a full time position for every single one of those departments. And
mhm,
so our podcast services is like a assembly line. It runs through the each department very seamlessly, and so it's a lot easier for us to produce your episode and make sure that it has full SEO value, all the metadata, the blog post, the YouTube with full SEO optimization, giving the content the best chance that it can. And you're getting 7 people for less than the cost of one full-time employee. So, there's 3 pillars in any content marketing strategy, or plan, and it's strategy, production, and amplification. You got
mhm,
to have a strategy. And when it comes to production, outsource it. Always outsource it. Don't try to do it yourself. That's not where your value is. And then the amplification is really the relationship building. And
mhm,
so, our theory is that the client should really be focusing on the strategy and the amplification, and let a real video editor edit your video and make it look really good. Let us take that off your plate, save you 10 hours, you know, and then you can really focus on who you're interviewing and then how to make sure that that's message is getting out to more people. That's really where the value is. So I would say, don't try to hire a team. Don't try to hire, if you're a company that can't sell video editing services, then it doesn't make sense to hire a video editor.
mhm,
It doesn't make sense to do somebody on Fiverr who you're not going to be able to find again, or whose profile could disappear. It's better to work with a smaller agency or group of people who can handle all of it. Because a lot of times you'll see clients say, well, if you could do the audio, we can handle the graphics. And it's like, it never works out.
mhm,
It's like they're already busy and you're paying your graphic designer $100,000 a year, maybe.
mhm,
So it doesn't make sense to have them working on this stuff that you're paying us a much lower rate. So a lot of times it's just, you know, delegating in the right way and recognizing that the real value is in the front end, and that's the strategy and amplification.
Hmm. And now, since everything is changing on a daily basis, things are not the way they used to be. And I am going to wake up tomorrow and find that the things that I'm doing today are not the things that are going to be done tomorrow. But up until now, what do you think is the most effective way of getting the podcast out there? Is it, I mean, on the social media, on the podcast platforms, which has been one of the most effective one in everything that you've been doing?
Well, in our business, we really focus more on the ROI metric of, are you taking more discovery calls, and are you creating the relationships that you want, and less on the download. So for
Ah,
us,
okay.
the guest is more important than the audience. So we focus less on that, because really, if you really want your content to be seen, you have to pay. Period.
Yeah.
Everything is pay to play.
Mhm.
So the answer is, how do I get, anybody to go visit X, my podcast, my website? It's pay to play. Every single thing is pay to play. If you really want high visibility. So if you look at podcasts that have high visibility numbers, like the top of the charts and a lot of downloads, like from big players like NPR, they're putting hundreds of thousands of dollars in advertising money behind those things to get those numbers. So
Mhm.
if you really want high visibility, pay to play. But if you're looking for ROI, if you're looking to actually, like, because you could pay and you
Yeah.
could get 100,000 downloads on your podcast, that doesn't mean anybody's going to hit the discovery call button
Hmm.
and book a call with you and hire you.
Hmm.
So the ROI metric isn't in the downloads, it's in the actual dollars. Like, did you book any more discovery calls? Did you send out more proposals this month? That's how you measure success with a branded podcast, with a podcast specifically meant to support your business.
Oh, so it's not about the crowd. It's about that specific person that is going to move the needle.
It's a very effective tool. Listen, if you show up and you do a really amazing introduction, oh,
Mhm.
Molly was born here and Molly did this, and Molly's second grade teacher said this, really a thorough 1 minute long introduction. That's not just reading somebody's bio. Like, if you really want to do business with somebody, right? And
Mhm.
you do that intro and you ask them excellent questions, right? And then
Mhm.
you follow up with them 2 days later and you say, thanks so much for being on the podcast. I was wondering if I could get a meeting with you next week. They're going to say yes. It's the theory of reciprocity. When you do something for somebody, like spend the time to do an introduction that makes them remember you and feel valued, they're going to want to do something in return. It's a perfect time to then ask for that meeting, or ask them to be on your board of directors, or ask them whatever it is, depending on what your business does and what your goals are, right? But there should always be a clear CTA. And so if you do that 12 times in a year and you establish 12 new relationships, out of those 12, one or two of them is going to bite. And so depending on your contract size, that could mean an extra 20K, 50K,
Mhm.
100K this year in revenue, 1 million. You never know, depending on your business. So, that's where the real magic happens. But you got to put effort into it. You got to really impress that person. And a lot of times that person is not somebody who gets interviewed a lot. They're not popular on LinkedIn, but they're the ones who can help you get that deal signed. So,
Mhm. Makes sense. And how do you, in the first place, get the very right person? Yeah, how? Just this is going to be the person that is going to be uh, very important for this podcast and is going to bring in business.
well, I think it just depends on what your business is, and then, really thinking about that on a granular, like, number one, you have to know who your avatar is. Who is your perfect client? You know, if
Hmm.
you want to do business with lawyers, right? Like, let's say your business is only for lawyers, right? You do something for lawyers. Then you should interview somebody who's the president of the National Lawyers Association, because they know 5,000 lawyers. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? So when
Yeah.
you really know who it is you want to do. Now, if you're not really, really clear on who you want to do business with, and then that gets a little bit, and you're not trying to get to Bill Gates, you're not trying to, like, that's not who you want to do business with. You want to, you know, how many clients do you need, right? Like we could dial this all the way back. You got to know your numbers. How much money do you need to make in revenue? What is 1 million a year? What's a half a million a year? What are your goals? How much do you need to make? What are your expenses? Okay, well, 10 new clients would get me to 1 million a year. All right, well, that's one a month with 2 months off.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, who could get you one new contract? So if you're looking at attorneys, yeah, interview somebody who runs an attorneys association.
Mm-hmm.
Interview somebody who has an attorney's newsletter that everybody subscribes to.
Mm-hmm.
Interview somebody who can get you in front of a lot of your clients at one time. So it's not always necessarily the one person. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Sometimes it's that fulcrum point, right? It's that person who has access to lots of the potential clients you're looking for. And then the bigger answer, just like everything in life, it's about relationships, like who's in your personal Rolodex? Who can you reach out to say, hey, would you mind making an introduction to this person? I'd like to interview them. Life is all about relationships.
Oh yeah, and we should keep building them on a daily basis. Every single day, you take a minute and imagine and think, whom do I know, and who knows me? Because it's one thing to know someone; it's another thing to be known by that someone.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's true, it's true. And so you got to ask for help. I was reminded of that this week. You don't get help if you don't ask for it. You don't
Mm-hmm.
get the introduction if you don't ask for it. But
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, people like to feel helpful. If you're not saying, hey, Molly, can you send me $50 on Cash App? I might be like, oh, I don't know. But if you message me and you say, listen, I have this really great idea, and here's the thought, would you introduce me to this person? I'm going to be like, yeah, Anthony, sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
as humans, we generally want to be helpful, right? So, but you
Mm.
got to know what you want. You got to know who it is you want to work for. And if you're like, well, my business serves everybody, well, you better reel it back to the drawing board before you start reaching out to people, because you don't actually know who you serve yet.
You should be very specific, be very focused on what it is that you want to achieve, the person that you want to get connected to.
Yeah.
And so what we are seeing today is that this connection through a podcast is a relationship building. It's not just an appearance, like we are people keep appearing and talking. It's a connection that should be targeting some result, a connection that is going to achieve something in the near future. And you've got to be deliberate. You're gonna have an idea of what is it that you want to achieve.
Exactly. And provide value, right? Like coming on podcasts, I just was like, I want to have more conversations with people and meet some other podcast hosts, because maybe you'll be at the next convention and I'll be like, "Oh, Anthony, what's up, man? Like, good to see you." And that's nice when you can move around in the world and feel valued and feel like not known from a publicity, but like have friends around the world and feel connected, right? Like at the end of the day, we all just want to feel connected. So
Yeah.
why not like go on podcasts and talk about your business, and maybe somebody will hire me from your show.
Mm,
Maybe they won't, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's still a nice conversation with you. Now we know each other. It's a small world.
mhm.
If there's anything I've learned, is a very, very small world. And the older you get, the smaller it gets. So you just never know where our relationship might head. Maybe I'll give you a client, or maybe you'll send me a client. You just never know, but you got to be open to that. But when you go on other people's podcasts, that's a great way to just hack the system. Go on a bunch of podcasts, talk about your business. Don't
Mhm.
worry about it too much. But if you're going to do your own podcast, it should be like spearfishing. It should be super targeted. You're going for very specific people with a very specific goal in mind,
Not just about anybody out there.
Right.
Now, for example, let me ask you now, since we got connected in this podcast and you are willing to come to this podcast, what would you want to achieve from this podcast? And be, yeah, just be open, because you said yes. So, what could be the goal of having this conversation that we are having today?
My number one goal is that people go, huh, That's a good point. And start thinking about things a little differently. Like I
Mhm.
love Alex Hermosi and I listen to his podcast and it's like short and sweet. And sometimes I'll listen to an episode and I will close my phone after that and I will go straight to my desk and whip up a new offer, or I just have one of those aha moments where something just clicks in my head. And so
Mhm.
if what I'm saying right now is resonating with people and it's making them think, wait, I know 12 people I'd like to interview. And wait, that's a good idea. Like if I have sparked just that little bit of creativity and thought and direction in your head, and that results in anybody who's listening, and it results in any sort of revenue generating or positive result, inducing activities, and that's providing value, right?
Mhm.
And maybe one day they'll call me and hire me, but even if they don't, if I still gave them a piece of information that helps them do better, then I've set out to do.
Yeah, and that's good. I love that. And now we are talking about a relationship building, and this is something that has been there for ages and ages. But then in the recent past, things, as we said, things are changing. In comes AI that wants to replace these relationships, that wants to take the place that we are taking right now. How has it been in your business, and what's your idea of the future after it has now taken full control?
Well, I think it's good. I think AI can be good. I think it's gonna like kill us all eventually. Don't get me wrong. Like I've watched enough Will Smith movies to know what's really gonna happen here. But I feel like honestly, it's never going to replace relationships. No AI can replace me. It can study how I talk, it can study all that, but it'll never replace me because every day I'm a different version of myself. Sometimes I'm in a good mood, sometimes I'm bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes I stress out about the world, sometimes I'm just funny, right? So the AI would have a really hard time replacing me. It'll
Mm.
never replace people. It will replace jobs. It will replace tasks. It'll replace some people's jobs, but it's not going to replace people. And so use AI to make your business work better. Use it to write your social media posts. You can take if English isn't your first language or whatever language isn't your first language, you can write your poorly, worded and grammatically incorrect sentence and put it into AI and it will rewrite it for you.
Mhm.
So you can use it to really help you with some of your weaknesses, and to speed up some of that stuff. Like if you really struggle writing social media captions, then use Jasper and it'll do it for you. And
Yeah.
I don't see any harm in that. You just got to make sure you read it and it makes sense and it sounds like you, but it's a great tool. But at the end of the day, it can't replace sharing a laugh together, having a good conversation, doing business. It's just, and there is a bunch of tech companies who are looking to, everything's AI now, but 90% of those companies won't exist in 2 years. So don't let the hype freak you out
Mhm.
because you know
Okay. How
it is what it is.
it is what it is. Relationships will always be there.
Will always be there. I mean, I definitely like even Elon Musk is like we shouldn't use it, and all these smart people are saying we should put a pause on it for a year. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of reasons to be very concerned. But as a business owner, use it to your advantage until Independence Day or whatever.
Yeah, Independence Day.
Yeah.
Wow, this is wonderful, and it's good that we are having this conversation. And uh, at this point, because we are almost coming to the end of this show, and it has been good sharing. I am wondering, because you talk about maybe someone is going to reach out to you after this and give you business, become a client. You never know. So how
You
can they?
never know. My website is the best place. It's heartcastmedia.com, like, heart and then CA. Look at that. It's right on the screen, heartcastmedia.com. You can see our work and samples of our work and case studies. And of course, there's contact us buttons everywhere that go right to me. And always happy to chat. We have a great content assessment tool on our website that you should take to see where your content marketing is stacking up so you know how to plan the rest of 2023 to get the most out of your content marketing objectives.
Wow. So once again, reach out to Molly at hardcastmedia.com and get to find out more on how you can grow your business. Look at the content that is there and see how it can help you in your business. And that's about it for today on this episode. And we appreciate your presence here, Molly, very much.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yes,
much for having me.
yes. And all those who could be watching us, I know we have people watching us, and those who are going to watch us after we are through or listen to us after we are through with this episode, we thank you too for taking your time and we wish you success in everything that you're doing. Now, before we go, we would like to hear a few words from Molly that we should always remember. Which are they?
Oh man, no pressure. Okay. Well, I'll go with one of my favorites. Anything is possible. Whatever you want your life to look like, it's possible. You just got to decide what you want because that's harder than actually making it happen.
Hmm, beautiful. Anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible. And that's about it. Thank you very much, Molly.
Thank you.
We appreciate everything. And this has been Now Tell Us. I've been your host, Anthony Moirore. Together with our guest, Molly Ruland, we say bye for now. Go and make it happen. Yeah.